Decarboxylation. Should you do it? Why do you do it? Years ago, when people used to cook with weed, they would just grind up weed and put it in the brownies, and the brownies would taste like the front yard. And sometimes they didn't get you high. And what they didn't realize, probably back then, is that you have to decarboxylate the plant material if you're going to cook with it. Nowadays, what people do is they typically soak the material in butter or oil. That extracts the cannabinoids, and then many times when you then cook with it in a cookie recipe, a brownie recipe, that offers some decarboxylation, and then you get the intoxicating effects. But you have to remember that decarboxylation has to occur at a relatively high temperature, 220 degrees, for about 30 minutes. So I'm not much of a baker, so I don't know if the internal temperature of a brownie or a cookie would get that high. So what a lot of people do is they decarboxylate their weed first before either cooking with it, which is kind of a bad idea, it's antiquated, or before making a butter or an oil with it. So what you do is you preheat your oven to about 220 degrees. You spread out your weed on a cookie sheet or parchment paper on a cookie sheet. If you want, you can grind it up a little bit, not too much. Stick it in the oven and let it sit there for about 20 minutes. At about the 15-minute mark, you can move it around a little bit, stir it, and then give it another 15 minutes. And that should decarboxylate the THCA to THC or CBDA to CBD. And what is happening is that the THCA, which is the acidic form, is actually losing a carboxylic acid group. And if you were to look at this in a molecular form, it looks in the form of COOA, carbon, 2 oxygens, and hydrogen. That's called a carboxylic acid group. So when you heat the material in the oven, it decarboxylates it. And then if you want to then put it in oil or butter to extract the cannabinoids, you can. Remember that when you're doing this, you don't want to do it for too long. You lose a lot of the terpenes. And again, you're probably not going to lose any of the THC unless you do it for hours or you do it at an excessively high temperature. The important thing is that you try to extract as much of the THC, and that when you then measure the butter or the oil out to make cookies or brownies or whatever it is you're making, you kind of have to take some notes, because you're thinking in terms of what was the potency of the weed that I extracted? Did I extract all that THC? Let's say it was 20% strength or 25% strength. Did I get all that? Is it all in that butter now? And then when I make cookies, how much of that is going into each cookie or gummy or brownie? And you need good homogeneity, meaning you need a good mixture of the THC. So one gummy or brownie or cookie, hey, didn't do anything for me, and then the next brownie annihilates you. But that's typically what is occurring. You have to decarboxylate weed if you're going to use it in some type of edible. Now, when animals eat it, or if people eat it, and they do in California, as strange as that sounds, I'm like, but they don't get much of an effect, because there's only a slight amount of decarboxylation occurring from naturally occurring heat. So if a plant's out in the yard and you're growing it, it's going to have a little decarboxylation from the heat of the day, heat of the sun. But the real decarboxylation comes when you ignite it and smoke it. That's why you don't have to decarboxylate it, because you're going to smoke it with a flame, and then that end that's hot is going to decarboxylate all the THCA and you're going to get stoned. But if you're going to cook with it, you typically have to decarboxylate it first.